Hello Internet, I'm me, and this is Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger! Episode 42. Now, actually, from the official reports, there is only 10 episodes left of this season, and because it's going to be 52 episodes, and this is a two-parter, yes, for Dawn, or Doc, either one you want to talk about. And as I have said before, when I started out this series review show thingy, that everybody was putting away Doc as a throwaway character, as comic relief, that he would come back later on and actually show that he was worth some shit. Well, now's the time. This episode is actually a Doc episode, or Dawn, whatever. I'm gonna alternate between the two because I'm kind of used to how they call them both Doc and Dawn. Anywho, this is actually a Dawn episode where you figure out the past of Dawn. Well, sort of. This episode actually does start out with a fight scene, and, well, the fight scene's pretty much going away, almost every other fight scene in Kaizoku Sentai goes, where pretty much we have nameless henchmen coming in, of course, now the new Imperial Sugumi. And no, they're called Dogomins, sorry. And you have the regular little henchmen Gomins getting their asses kicked. And, of course, they are fighting. And, of course, you know, Luca's kicking ass, Joe's kicking ass, Marvelous is kicking ass, Princess Aime's kicking ass, and Doc is just kind of being wacky. And even Joe, it gets to a point where even Joe actually starts to question, why are you still acting in this wacky, you know, I forgot what he said, like, fanatic-y or, like, zany, that's what it was, zany fashion, when by this time, we've actually had some serious fights. Why don't you actually, you know, have a more refined fighting style and stop running away like a little coward? And, you know, Dawn is just pretty much like, well, that's the way I am, Joe. And it was actually more of a comedic scene than, you know, most types of fights. And that's something I kind of do like about this episode, that it actually does balance the comedic effects of actually having a whole Dawn episode, an episode dedicated to a character who's mostly comic relief, and actually balancing it with the dramatic points, which I'll mention later on. Okay, so after the battle, you know, everybody on the ship is like, holy crap, the Emperor's like, whoa, so this is well, not the Emperor, he really doesn't say anything. I don't think he said a damn thing ever since he came. Except for telling, Damadas that he killed his son. Other than that, I don't think he said a single word. But, of course, one of his right-hand man was like, aw, man, these Kaizoku Sentai. And I think he has, like, the black slang, almost. Because he's like, oh, whoa, these Kaizoku Sentai aren't a joke. They're taking our people down. And I was like, okay, you have a black slang to you. I'm kind of liking you. And Nissan actually comes up to the Emperor and says, let Damadas go. Damadas was actually very distraught when Wazugil died. Let him go get revenge. And when they actually allow it, we get to see how badass Damadas is. And I'm going to skip over some of Dawn's parts to talk about Damadas because he's interesting. Not to say that Dawn isn't interesting, but this was kind of more interesting. Because Damadas doesn't just sit in the jail cell. He breaks his handcuffs, blasts the jail cell open when he says, you can come out. When they say you're free to go. And goes to find Bosco. Finds Bosco. Attacks Bosco. And Bosco blocks Damadas' attack and gets knocked on his ass. Something that the whole team couldn't do. And Damadas actually shows that he can whoop Bosco's ass without breaking a fucking sweat. Technically, he can't sweat. He's a robot, I think. But, I mean, he just wipes the floor with Bosco and Sally. I mean, Sally tries to jump on Damadas. Damadas is trying like, bitch, please. And then it just kind of goes on. And that was really cool that this whole time, this guy who's just kind of sitting on the sidelines, always talking, and you keep hearing that he's the best, and you never get to see what he can do. And when he does do something, he comes off as a complete badass, wiping the floor with everybody he comes across. Even, and later on, he'll be whooping up the Kaizoku Sentai, and to a point where he forces them to retreat. And of course, back on the Gokaiger, we actually see that Princess Aime has been looking through an old magazine and finds an article of Dawn, or somebody who looks like Dawn, called the Dawn Daja, who is somebody who was a great hero who had killed a planet-killing dragon, which we don't really get to see. We kind of get to see like the shadow of its head getting cut off, but in the explosion, yes, because even when you kill a dragon in Super Sentai, it'll explode. In the explosion, in a bright light, he disappeared. No one knows where he is. And they all either assume he's dead or lost. And they say, and in the article, they say you can identify him by the star shape on his left arm. Yes, this is my left arm. This is my right. Reflex. Anyway, so what they do is they pretty much pin down Dawn, take his shirt off, and find the star mark on his left arm. Then they kind of say, well, why didn't you tell us? Why haven't you been more, manly? And it actually turns out that Dawn has actually lost his memory, even though he told them that his family, his home world, was taken over by the Zengais. But it turns out he just has amnesia, and he doesn't remember anything. And he tries to even play off the whole amnesia thing like, maybe if I had some 5-star cuisine, I could remember who I was. But of course, instead of playing off that the whole episode, it's only a one-time thing. And then we actually do get to hear of the first time Dawn meets the rest of the Gokaiger team. And we figure out that it was Joe, Luca, and Marvelous at the time. So the Gokaiger was not in good shape. They just weren't fighting. And so if the ship got damaged, it got damaged and kind of stayed that way, especially when it came to the computer systems. And when Dawn comes along, he actually just fixes up the place pretty well and does everything in a nice manner. He cleans up the place, he gets them the right food, fixes the computer, even though he had to just push one button, and pretty much does everything that they could never do, because they're honestly, if you think about it, they're more of the brute warriors while he is the thinker. I know. But other than that, pretty much that's all we get of Dawn's backstory. Now, of course, Damaras is coming back for revenge for Wazugil and actually gets Bosco to help him, beating him down to say, you try to cross me, I'll fucking kill you. And he pretty much does say that, like, I'll simply kill you. And in a battle, that is a fucking badass battle, even though the Kaizoku Sentai get beaten. Damaras, Sally, and Bosco beat the Gokaiger, and Bosco showing that he does have a finisher move, because, you can't be in Super Sentai without a finisher move. A glowing sword finisher move, to be exact. I don't know what happens, but I think Bosco kills Joe, Aime, and Luca. I think. It looks like it. I don't know why. There was an explosion and they weren't there anymore, so I'm like, I think they might have killed them. I'm pretty sure they didn't, because we have 10 episodes left, but wouldn't that be something? That we just have Marvelous and Dawn for the rest of the series. Would be a bold move. But anyway, Dominus, knocks Dawn back and just kind of goes, you're not important. And even Bosco's like, yeah, sure, whatever, we don't care. And takes Marvelous hostage, telling him that killing him is just too easy and he doesn't deserve it. So he's going to humiliate him and do a public execution of Marvelous in front of the whole entire planet. And also, Bosco has taken Marvelous's Morpher and Ranger Key. So, at the end, it's just Joe sitting on his own to actually just save the day, even though everyone's gone. And he has almost little to nothing left. So, what did I think of this episode? Oh, boy, this episode was... well, the first time I watched this episode, I decided this was going to be a 7.5, or at least an 8 out of 10, for mostly because of Damadas. But then as I watched it 2 more times, both raw and subbed, I kind of figured out that this episode was a complicated fucking episode. You had a character who's mostly a comedic effect character, and you had to actually put in some very dramatic and heavy subtext. And they wanted to keep that familiarity with the comedic aspect, and slowly and gradually brought in that dramatic aspect along right into the middle, apexing into a very dramatic form without it seeming too forceful, neither in the comedic or dramatic effects. And this was actually a very good thing. I'm actually really happy that the writers could actually get behind both the comedic and dramatic effects and actually bring them in into a very believable sense. To a point where the second time I watched it, I wasn't actually annoyed at the parts where Dawn was being silly. I actually thought that was actually character building as we brought in Damadas and Bosco. So this episode was actually a very well-rounded, very solid episode, though I did have my problems with it, and it did take a second viewing for me to really feel that this episode was a lot more than it was before. So for that, I'd give it a 9 out of 10, or an 8.5 out of 10. This episode was really good, and I really liked it. So I can't wait till I see the next episode where Joe, on his own, has to bring back the whole team, if it is the whole team, or at least Marvelous. So, I'll see you guys next time. Until then, peace.